Today we are chatting with Loree Phillip, and we're going to be talking about finding the courage to do what you love. She is a former 16-year Boeing professional turned entrepreneur who followed her heart to create greater freedom and impact. Her mission, like mine, is to empower women in their careers through her work as an empowerment coach. She is the host of the podcast named Daring to Leap and the founder of weSpark, which is a boutique coaching and training firm that supports professional women to bet on themselves, step into their brilliance, and gain the confidence to leap in their careers. Welcome to Living Intentionally, the podcast that empowers driven women to get unstuck and to take their personal and professional lives to the next level. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I am here to help you create the life you truly desire without burning out. And as a leading expert in living with amplified alignment between your mind, your energy, and your soul purpose, I'll be sharing valuable insights on mindset, energy, self-care, business, and much more. Plus, you get to hear from inspired women who have successfully built businesses and lives that are both meaningful and fulfilling. Join us as we dive into the topic that matter most and uncover the secrets to living intentional. Let's welcome Loree to the show today. Welcome, Loree. How are you?
Thank you, Carmen. What an amazing intro. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Oh my God. So we met in a networking event, and right away, I'm like, Loree and I have so much in common. First, as a mechanical engineer nerd myself, like the whole thing of working in Boeing is like, oh, the dream come true, right? But then we also know very well the demands, the taxing that is to work on a male-dominated industry. And, it's like as we awaken to everything else that is in life, sometimes those things that seem like everything we were working for doesn't fulfill us anymore. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of your story that I want you to tell yourself, but this is why we connected quickly and right away, because it's like, yeah, sister, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, we did. It was so funny because we had that conversation and you said you introduced yourself. And then when I went to introduce myself, I was like, Carmen, we we have so much in common. And so we just had to connect. So this is great.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? Like, how do you, what do you do in your professional career? And how do you get to where you are today, empowering women to bet on themselves? By the way, I love that.
Thank you for that. It has been a journey for sure. And Boeing, like you said, you're like, wow. For me, it was wow when I got that job. It was my first job right out of college. And it meant so much to me because I stepped into that job and on my first day, I was already making more than my mother had been making after a 15-year career in teaching. And so it was like, okay, I made it, I'm here. I'm like entry level financial analyst. And then I just stuck around, and I let the flow of life kind of just take me to the next position, whatever was right in front of me. So I moved from finance to program management to strategy. And I didn't ever think that I was going to do something completely different, step outside of the box. I was like, okay, you join a company like Boeing and you stay there for 30 years. I mean, that's basically what people do. And it was a good, stable job. And what's different between our stories is that you were burnt out and I wasn't. I was like, it was okay. I had days that were crazy and whatnot, but overall, I felt like I had a lot of flexibility. I had a lot of freedom to, if I needed to go to an appointment or something like that, I could figure that out. Um, but what happened, and this is where everything changed for me, was a bit of that awakening you're talking about, is that during COVID, I really got a lot more time, reflection time for myself, time to go on walks. I was working from home. I wasn't in the office, in my cubicle. I was getting fresh air. I was doing my meditation daily. I was doing all of these things. And I started to realize what's important and what's not important. And when people are dying from COVID or really worried about their family, about all of these things, sitting there on the corporate calls, talking about the same problems that don't change, watching people just say stuff to sound smart and position for like the next position, it just stopped feeling important. And there was a small, quiet voice inside of me that said, is this what you want to be doing for another 15 years? And at that point, I was like, where did that come from? But also, no, it's not. There was something that was like, no, I'm meant to do more. I don't love this. It's okay. It's a great salary. It's stable. But I did feel like if I did, if I figured out what I would love to do and I did it, it could be magical. It could be, well, what if then, what could I do then? And so that just started to open up this idea that I could change and do something else. And then from there, it was quite a journey to figuring all of that out and actually doing something about it.
So a couple of things I just want to say before we move into the jumping and taking the leap, daring to leap, which is very clever, your podcast name, is I commend you for listening to the voice the very first time. Like in my case, the voice have been there for about 15 years and 12 to 15 years, and I heard it the first time and I'm like, no. Like, what are you talking about, right? And then I hear it, and then it just kept getting louder and louder and louder, and it really had to like knock me in the head and give me more tangible, disturbing signs in my life for me to say, okay, I'm going to listen. So for everyone listening here, it's like, this is one case specifically. I'm going to tell you, you should follow Loree's example and not mine. Like, you don't need to wait until, your life is crumbling, until you have physical manifestation. I had hives everywhere in my body. And it's like, daily migraines, totally burnout. And it's like, you don't have to wait until that happened to do something different. And so kudos, like, good job.
Thank you, Carmen. It was, it wasn't so instant. I mean, I heard the voice and I acknowledged it, but it was at least over a year before I actually left. And there is a different set of challenges, I believe, when you have something good going for you and you decide to step away from something good because you have this knowing, this feeling, this desire to do more. It takes this, it's almost like it's like this bigger leap of faith that's like, okay, I'm going to give up this good thing. Yes. And my family thinks I'm crazy, but I'm going to go do this other thing and it's going to work out. And that really did take me I have to think about the timing, but at least a year, if not slightly more, before I actually made the transition.
And that is okay. I mean, I tell everybody, it's not like I woke up one day and I say, I'm quitting today, right? I did quit faster than I thought I would, but I had a plan, right? I didn't leave my secure, basket of supplies and eggs and food and income to say, okay, well, I'm just going to try to figure out what I'm going to do next. No, I have worked on myself, worked on my beliefs. And I remember telling myself, gosh, Carmen, if you work half the time on your business that you're working for, as you said, a non-important cause,
Yeah.
there's no way you're not going to be successful. There's no way. And when that thought clicked on me, right, when I really believe there's no way I am not going to be successful, then everything started falling into place, right? But yes, I do not recommend anybody to say, okay, I'm quitting tomorrow if you don't have a plan, right? We have to have a plan.
Yeah, right. Planning is a great idea. Listen to Carmen. I like what you said though about that belief that if I just spent half the amount of time I do doing your corporate work on your business, of course you're going to be successful. And the way I was thinking about it was, man, if I spent my energy, my time and energy on only things that I thought were important to me and I wanted to do it, wow, like the possibilities, because up until that point, I was successful at Boeing. But I didn't feel like I was all in, right? And so it's like, there's this power in when your heart is in it, where it's almost like you can work half the amount because whatever you're doing has that like
Potencies.
Sparked energy and momentum and flow. Whereas I got to make this call. I've got to go to this meeting. I've got to do this. It's like you're dragging yourself through the day and you still made it, right? So it's like, I can do that. Imagine what I could do if I allowed myself to do what I love.
Yes, absolutely. And it impacts everybody in your bubble, right? Your family, your kids, your friends, your clients, right? Every person that you touch now has the full potency of you, the potency coming from the joy, the enjoyment, and not the obligation just to be there because you're collecting, paycheck or, putting your time card. So, okay, so let's talk about, how do you take the leap? What did you have to do to find the courage? By the way, I love that we're talking about this because I don't know if I mentioned to you, Loree, but I am going to be part of a chapter book, and the book is called Beyond Certainty, Finding Courage in the Unknown. So it is, this is like, this is what I do, like, how to find courage. But I want, everyone takes different steps. So curious and interested in like, how do you find courage to go do what you love?
So I actually found this word courage kind of interesting because on one of the last few days I was working at Boeing, I had a happy hour, a send off, all these kinds of things. And the most senior leader of the Boeing office in Mesa, in Arizona, where I was working out of, she came to my happy hour and I didn't hardly know her that much. So I was actually kind of surprised. Like, she's like the head honcho. And she told me on the side, she's like, you know what you're doing is so courageous. And I was like, and she thinks that, like, you know what I mean? I was taken aback by this word of courage because at that point I had built up, and I'll go through all of this with you, but I had gone through the inner work and the self-discovery, and where it didn't feel courageous. It just felt like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And you can't look back anymore. Like you couldn't have paid me to stay doing what I was doing, like $1 million, because I was so adamant about, this is my path now. And not to say that the next day, like when my last day, I wasn't freaking out, like, whoa, what did I do? But in the moment, like, I just knew that it wasn't in my path to stay there. And so the courage comes from that deep inner knowing. And in order for me to get there, I really had to take a lot of time in work, really getting to know myself better. Because when I had asked when that question popped in my head, is this what you want to be doing for the next 15 years? And even though the answer was like this resounding no, the question that came up was, well, what would I do instead? And I had never thought about that. I was not that type of person that would reflect, like, what do I like? What do I this? What do I that? It felt like a waste of time. I was one of those people that just like, we're just marching forward and we're just forget the past. We're just going forward. And so I didn't really know myself.
It's so deep and so common, I find these days. And one of the things I really work in with my clients, it's that self-assurance that comes with knowing, like, you first need to know yourself and then you get to love yourself, right? When you can get all those things from within, then it's so much easier to do all the other things we do, which, set your boundaries. Like when you're talking about, like, it didn't sound courageous to you because you already have done the work. So basically what you have done is you have changed your identity already from, I'm a corporate mom to I am a coach, right? You already have changed that identity. And then it's like, what do you mean I'm not going to do this, right? Like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is the new me.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
It is. And it really, so you're absolutely right. It started with exploring, what are my values? What do I care about most in this world, for me, for myself, for my family? What are my strengths? What are, like, all of these things I did, and I actually worked with a coach on it because I knew I wasn't going to sit down and do it myself. And so it was like, okay, I needed that accountability. And as I worked through the process, it wasn't like this instant overnight, I just knew it. It evolved. It was like, I started to know, okay, these are my values. And then I started to see, these are the things I would love to do. This is what lights me up. What do I get excited to do? What if I got to do only things I'm excited to do? Like, how would that change my world? Going through that process. And so you get to know yourself, you start to love yourself more because you're listening to yourself. And
you treat yourself with compassion. I mean,
yes.
I remember back when, like, I would treat myself worse than I treat my, less like people around, right? And it's like,
I think a lot of women do that, actually.
Yes.
They're so compassionate with everybody else but themselves. I find that to be very common. So, just listening to yourself is an act of self-love. If you feel like you need some time off, if you feel like you need to take a break, if you feel exhausted, that's yourself telling you something. And if you don't listen, you're not giving yourself what you need, and you're not doing that. So you go from knowing, loving, and also trusting yourself. So this is where I think some of the courage comes from, is you start to listen to yourself and realize as you're doing it, like, wow, I'm actually really creative, or I have some really good ideas, because they start to come through when you're listening to yourself. And then you start to test them out. And then you start to build confidence and trust in that without anything else outside of ourselves, if you just look at the internal, we are connected into all the wisdom of the universe, and it will come through you. If you
Yes.
listen, if you trust, if you love, if you pay attention, if you know what I mean? It
Yes.
comes through. And when you start to see that, you're like, I can do this. And it's not just me, it's me connected, right? I'm not having just this conversation. I'm seeing what's coming up in the moment because it's all there, Carmen.
And I love you bring that up because I mean, I'm into energy. Everyone who's listening to this know that I'm into energy. Energy is my jam. And people often ask me, oh my God, like how your gifts got developed, how do you have such a good intuition? Well, because I trust what I get, and the more I trust what I get, the more I get. It's just this like snowball effect, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all a muscle. It's a muscle. Everything in your body is a muscle, right? Your energy also flexes and contracts. And it's like, do you build a relationship with yourself so strong that your body tells you when something is right, when something is not? And do you learn to like listen for it? It's like, as a mom, the kids have drama cries, real cries, like, and so I don't know if you've done this, but like, when the kids were little and they were crying, I'm like, no, he's okay, right? Like,
yeah, right. You just know.
Or throw everything and go save them because they really like got hurt or something, right? And it's like,
right.
it's the same. It's the same way. It's like you learn to listen and pay attention to things that are happening for you. And you start catching them early and on time. And so that's how this intuition, which supports your courage, right? Because when you feel supported by, and the universe, the greatest consciousness and God, when you feel supported, then you're not alone, that you're going to be taken care of. Things are going to work out.
We interrupt this podcast for a sponsored ad. We will be right back.
Hey there! Looking for a breakthrough in your life journey? Well, I got great news for you. As a certified master intuitive coach and master energy healer, I can guide you and support you in unleashing your full potential. Let's work together to identify those subconscious blocks that are keeping you stuck, remove any emotional barrier, and reprogram the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck into empowering ones. With my help, let's reframe your story for success and replenish yourself with light and love. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. Let's discover what's holding you back and make lasting changes in your life today. Go to the link below at carmenbento.com to learn more about my coaching services and to schedule a complimentary consult with me today. Remember, it is time for transformation, and I'm so happy to be here to help you make it happen.
Welcome back to Living Intentionally with Carmen Benton and special guest Loree Phillip.
It's so important to get that deep-rooted, build those roots within yourself and your higher self and your body and all of that kind of stuff, because you're going to walk out and the external world, society, expectations, all of that's going to hit you. And if you're strong in yourself, you can get through that a bit easier because and your confidence coming through will help those other people see. Like if you believe in yourself, other people start to believe in you, and it just expands.
Absolutely. That is so powerful right there, right? Like it all starts with what you think and what you feel about yourself. If you think you are great, there is no way anyone in your bubble would not think the same thing, right? Because you attract what you believe. And so if you have, imposter syndrome, which by the way, everyone has a certain level. And this is why I don't think I will ever in my life not have a coach. And people would say, it's like, well, didn't you already, work on yourself? Yeah, but every level has different
Yes.
challenges, right? Every level
Yes.
has different challenges. And, I would say 90% of the times I can coach myself, but there is the other 10% of things that is like, yeah, you probably you have an objective point of view from someone who is not in the middle of the mess, right?
Mhm.
But we're saying about the courage, and what I find too is that the difference between courage and fear, I would say, is that courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Courage means that you actually have worked in yourself enough to do it even if you're peeing in your pants. Like, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It's like,
Mhm.
I love public speaking, and I have in my career, I had to talk, big company meetings, and, there were thousands of people and whatnot. And a couple of things: the more prepared you are, the easier it is to get there. But also, there is this, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds when you grab the mic and there's everyone staring at you, right? And you haven't broke
Yeah,
the ice,
right. Yeah.
that it is scary. But that
It
doesn't
is
mean I didn't
scary.
like to do it. And then the more I did it, it's like, the more it's like, second 31, you're going to be fine, right? So you just power through that little obstacle and then you go, right? Is that kind of
Mhm.
like, is that kind of what you feel that the courage also looks like in your story?
Yeah, and just like everything else, it evolves. So I had the courage to leave Boeing, and that first day I had dreamed about this. There was this like um feeling like I could never leave, that I didn't like, I was had these golden handcuffs, and yeah, I want to leave, but I really, it feels impossible. And so I had visualized myself like walking out of the building with my box of stuff. I mean, I had been there for 16 years in the end, and it was my first professional job. So it's all I knew. And so
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that day is going to feel so amazing. I'm going to feel so free when I leave. And the reality was that last day, I woke up and I had a lot of anxious energy. I was like, oh my goodness, like it didn't feel as amazing as I thought it would feel. I mean, the day I said I was leaving, I was like, woo, that was exciting, but actually doing it, right? Like that last day, now I've got to figure this out. And I went on that walk early in the morning to kind of calm my nerves. And on that particular day, I looked up and I saw the most beautiful double rainbow you've ever seen. And it just really helped me like take a breath. Okay, I am on the right path. And so you get to a point, and then there's something else that might pop up that you need to work on, that you need to get past to get to the next point. And so there have been things like, even to get to that point, I had this limiting belief that I didn't deserve to have more than what I already had, because I did feel like my job, my life, my house, my kids, my family was already so amazing. Like, who am I to feel like I can just throw that away and go do something else because I want to?
Right. I have goosebumps
And
everywhere.
yeah, I mean, that was a tough one for me, Carmen, and it was quite sneaky. It's not like I was thinking every day, I don't deserve this. It didn't pop in that way. It was
Guilt. Maybe guilt, because for me it was guilt.
it might have been, but the way it manifested was that my broader vision of what was possible in my life had a box around it.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't see, like, when I was working with my coach, she was like, dream big. What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just really want this one thing. I was like, if I could just have this one thing, then everything will be right with the world, and I have the freedom and all this kind of stuff. And then I realized, why am I just so narrow
Yes.
in my dreaming? I have not allowed myself to dream. And I had to really dive deep into where that was coming from. And that's when I realized that I didn't feel like I deserved it. I didn't feel like I was special. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of underlying things I had to work through at that point. But all of this work kind of builds to the next thing. I got past that. Now I'm probably dreaming too big. And
No,
because
I don't
you
think
open up the kimono and then you're like, oh, why not? Why can't I just take over the world?
Yes. And you know what? What I like the most about what coaching does for a person is that it really helps you change the glasses with which you look at the world. Like, something happened the other day for me that normally would have triggered me completely. So I was having a situation with my 16-year-old son, and he wasn't being very nice. And, still I have a very special bond with him. So probably allowing a behavior that I shouldn't, but hey, I'm a mom. And so I could see my husband was getting triggered a little bit with it. And normally in the past, I probably would have reacted to, the way he was reacting. I would have reacted to his reaction. But now I was really quickly able to see, well, he's getting triggered because he loves me. And he doesn't like the way my son is talking to me. But he doesn't feel like he can do anything because he's stepdad, right? So, the dynamics is complicated. But the point is that it didn't trigger me for a second. And I actually went and said, thank you for, feeling this way. Just please let me handle it because, it's my son, right? But like before, that would be like, oh my God, I can't believe, it's like all this.
Yeah, a big blow up. Yeah.
And that is something that I would never be able to do without the tools that coaching and the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, right? So we're helping people, with their careers or take the leap or, start business or whatever it is that we're helping them with, any type of coaching that someone can receive. But the way the traumas, the beliefs, the stories that we tell ourselves are all the same. And it's like this non-stop record player. And so it affects all the areas of your life. And when you understand how transformational these little nuggets are, right? And then you can, what other areas, for example, you might have been playing small, right? That were like sneaking in your life, right? It's not just what you can achieve as a professional, but it's also probably, with your I mean, like it can be anywhere, right? And they sneak on you.
Yeah, it is. And I love that you brought this up because at the end of the day, most of our, if we're not getting to where we want to be, if we're not having the life we want to have, a lot of it has to do with the programming in ourselves, in our minds. And, we didn't choose to, the way we were raised, the way, our parents acted, our siblings, those beliefs got deep rooted in childhood for the most part for people. But we can choose now to change them. And so that's the power in it. It's hard sometimes to hear that, wait a minute, like, because you don't want to blame yourself, and it's not blame, but there's a lot of also freedom in that I could change it.
Right. You have control over it. You have the total
yeah, having that control. And so you're right. It's shifting. I feel like I'm shifting. I was shifting something yesterday too, Carmen. It's like, it never ends. And actually was wondering about this because it's like, gosh, you would think with all this inner work that I do, with all, and I do energy work and all the kind of stuff, with all the work I'm doing, you would think that I would be like free of everything, but there's always something else. And it's like,
There's
okay, I
other
gotta let this
levels.
go.
And it's,
Yeah.
quite frankly, like a year ago, I wish I would have the problems I have today. I mean, this is just
Yes,
like,
yes.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I know. And actually that's what I was thinking about because if I were to reflect on and just take stock on my life in this exact moment, I'm having a conversation with you here on this podcast a year ago right now. What is April 13th? I was working at Boeing, probably having a conversation with my boss or something, not feeling free, not feeling, so just this transformation of 1 year. And so whatever I was releasing yesterday, and by the way, it was because I was trying to move so fast and basically achieve these big things I want to achieve. And I wasn't allowing myself to allow in like celebrating my wins. What have I done so far? Coming from that place of accomplishment instead of, but I still want to do this, but I still want to do this. That shift was me yesterday. And I was like, oh goodness, I can't believe I was doing that. But it's night and day. I wouldn't even know it that I would be here today talking with you. It just happens.
I don't even want to think what my April 13th of 2022 looked like. It was probably horrible. But yeah, I mean, whatever, like, when we started this before we started recording, I was telling Loree that, it's snowing and I'm sick and tired of the snow. But again, in the scheme of things, is like life is so wonderful, right? And it's like, and sometimes we fail to do that. So I don't have it in my desk. So, but I have a journal. It's called the Self-Love Journal that I created. And I use this to heal myself. This is one of the things that I did. And what I wanted to point out about that is that every day I ask myself, what did you celebrate today? Because I mean, I was super guilty of this, but with all the people that I coached and I have coached and I see and I talk to, it's like we are a team to say, you know what, you did a great job today. You did a great job.
Yes.
And it could be something like so simple, like
make
good breakfast for your kids, we're day on time. It doesn't have to be anything monumental, but it's like pat yourself in the back and know that you are doing good things. That's how courage makes sense, right? Like,
right. Well, you acknowledge yourself, but I think you want to take it a step further. This is an area that I'm working on continuously, is allowing in that recognition from other people. I was deflecting that, Carmen. If you were to come up to me and say, you know what, Loree, great job. I was like, oh, thank you. But you know what? It was a team effort. And I really only did this part. And I would just come up with all these reasons to block your compliment and not allow it in. And I'm still working on that. And I think that's how it's somewhat connected in celebrating my own wins, is that I don't know where this came from, but I do feel very uncomfortable when people acknowledge me in a positive way. And so I have to work on letting that in and allowing myself to feel great about that. When you can start shifting that, it's powerful.
Yeah, one thing that might help you really shift that is when you and this actually clicked for me, the same energy you use to receive a compliment is the same energy you use to receive $1 million. So we are very quickly to say, if I say, Loree, you look amazing today. probably the first reaction is like, oh, you look amazing too, right? Like you reciprocate the compliment. So what happened if I write you a check today? Loree Phillips, $1 million. Are you going to send me the $1 million back?
Maybe. Carmen, what is this about?
And so I remember, I mean, this one was one of like those opening moments for me, which, so my husband and I were both working on dinner together. I made something and he made the other thing. And I said, oh my God, I think he probably made the steak. He makes the best steaks. I'm like, the steak is so good. And he's like, oh, it's just steak. And then maybe I made the pasta, and homemade pasta or something. He's like, oh, the pasta's so good. I'm like, yeah, just flour and egg. And my daughter, who was 12 years old at the time, she's sitting at the table and she's like, you guys are the most pathetic couple I have ever seen in my life. So like, excuse me, she actually is as sassy as her mom. And she's like, can you just say thank you and like sip it? And I'm like, oh my God. Lessons from my 12-year-old daughter. Should write a book about that. But it's so true. It's like, what do we always feel like we're not worth it enough to say, you know what? I did an amazing job today.
Yes.
And I don't need to tell you that you also did, just so I can feel better with my amazingness, right?
Right. But that's I think what's important, what I heard yesterday that was really so powerful for me is that you start there. You allow in those compliments. You allow yourself those moments to feel good about the little things. And then you start attracting more, right? So then it builds from there. And all the little things that you can be grateful for, that you can feel good about, are available to you right now, because we all are in a moment. Like if everybody thinks about where they were a year ago or 5 years ago, most of us would be so happy with where we're at right now. You know what I mean? And there's always something that you can. In fact, I was talking to a CEO last week on my podcast, and this was the clip I took of that. Was she's the CEO of this business. She worked her way up in a tech company to CEO. And do you know how she builds herself for rejection and potential like bad news? She sets herself up with wins, and the wins are like, did I get up this morning? Did I put my makeup on? Did I, very basic things. And she's like giving herself those pats on the back all day. I'm like, wow, like, she's got a pretty big position and this is how she's doing it. It was really powerful because a lot of the times we just let ourselves just kind of brush that off, but we accomplish so many things every day that we could be proud of.
Yes. Oh my God, Loree, I think we can talk for days.
Yeah.
On courage and confidence. And I just enjoy, your stories and just your energy. So it's so open and so beautiful. So, and we might have to do take two to keep talking about this.
I'm sure we could.
So I feel like we really conveyed the point, right? Like courage, confidence to do what you love to do. It's not something that you're going to wake up one day with, right? You have to work on yourself. Like if I had to summarize the last 40 minutes, that we've been talking here, it's something that you have to work on yourself. You have to develop that muscle and really like lay the ground to it. Would you want to add something to that so we can?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that's really great. Because the most powerful confidence and courage you can have is when you feel it within yourself. And so as you work your way through to get that feeling by knowing yourself, loving yourself, trusting yourself, that's where that confidence and courage is real. If somebody would have told me 2 years ago, you are gonna leave here, start a business, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, because I said so, you know, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't think I could do it. I would have been scared if they just said, okay, go figure it out at that point, because I was not ready and I was not there. And it's not somebody else telling you that you should or you can do it. It's when you can tell yourself that and you believe it, that's where all the power lies.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Loree, how can the audience find you, connect with you, you know, getting your energy?
Yeah. Thank you, Carmen. I just really would love to connect with anybody who wants to chat. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll put links in and
We'll put all the
everything. I'm on
links in, yeah.
LinkedIn. Is my preferred one right now. And then also, if you could check out my podcast, Daring to Leap, I would love that. I've been putting a lot of my energy into that and bringing in some amazing guests, like Carmen was on there talking about her journey. So it's a really fun, easy listen to there.
Yeah, and I think by the time this one airs, our interview in your podcast will already be aired, so I can even put that link here so you guys can.
Yeah,
listen
that
to
would
it.
be great. Yeah, it will, because your episode is coming out on Tuesday.
Awesome, I'm so excited. So that's fantastic. So we'll put all the links in the description, so you guys can check out the podcast and you can check out LinkedIn, which this is going live too. So yeah, it's been so amazing to have you here in the podcast today, Loree. Thank you so much for being open, for being, you know, for being you and empowering women. You know, as I said, from the moment I hear you, it's like, I have to connect with her. So thank you for making that possible. And, you know, showing what it is. Like, I always have been one that encouraged women to encourage women, like empower. If we don't put ourselves, if we don't help ourselves to go up, no one is going to do it. And so I am so grateful there's people like you in this world helping, you know, us to rise. So thank you so much. And
thank you, Carmen. This has been a privilege to be here with you. And let's do it again. It'll be fun.
Yes, we'll do it again. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.